Now then, everyone, this is the Wedding Mavericks podcast, a podcast for wedding photographers and videographers who want to build successful and sustainable businesses. My name's Lindsay and I'm joined by Jules, and in this episode we are discussing winners and losers. So I don't think it really matters what you do for a living, what kind of job you've got, but I think it's safe to say there will always be ups and downs.
Yes. Yeah. And I think no matter what stage you're at in your wedding business journey, or how much you charge, what market you're in, you know, what location you're in, you're always going to have, you know, different things that will affect your business and affect the kind of creative side of what you do. And there's going to be a lot of things that probably confuse or like might perplex you a little bit, you know, things that don't make sense. But there'll also be things that, you know, you weren't expecting it to be as good as it was. And it ended up being amazing. You can't always predict what it's going to be like, and that's really the inspiration of this podcast, of this episode. So, like some general themes and stuff that we've experienced and we see other people talking about. There's the weddings where people will pay top dollar, and they're really easy. And then there'll be the ones who want discounts and everything, and they basically generally can be a bit of a nightmare. So they've paid less money and you give them a discount of everything, but then they can end up being the problem. Yeah.
Well, that's always how it goes, isn't it?
Well, it's not always how it goes, but that doesn't make sense, though, does it, Linz?
It doesn't.
If you actually think about it, you'd think people who were paying less and who were, you know, if you'd given them a discount or you'd done them some kind of favour, you'd think that they'd actually be easier to work with because you'd...
In some respects, yeah.
And then the ones that were paying a lot of money and had maybe a really like nice wedding, were kind of used to you would assume that they're used to getting things their way type thing. You would
could
think
be like quite high maintenance.
You would assume that.
Yeah.
But then, you know, from our own experiences and also from what you see, you know, if you look in groups or you listen to things that people, you know, photographers and videographers with any kind of profile say, they'll always say that the easier jobs come as you get further up the ladder. That typically, and it won't always be a rule of thumb, but typically the more someone's paying and the nicer their wedding is and the better the venue is, and, you know, not only is it easier to shoot those weddings sometimes because things just look nice, so you don't have those kind of challenges, but you also find those clients tend to be less demanding for some reason, which is odd. So we thought we'd kind of use that and thread into some of our own examples of things that we've experienced in just the last few months, like in the last 12 months, let's say, where we've had like some good experiences and some not so good experiences. And fortunately, we haven't had loads of bad experiences, but we thought that even a good experience has some, you know, some things mixed into it that it's not all plain sailing. Or it wasn't quite what you expected it would be.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say you can never predict. I think even if you put the legwork into getting to know a couple, maybe it's a venue that you're familiar with, you know exactly what they want, you maybe know already, you know, kind of what look you're going to go for in the images, or you know what music you're going to use in the film. You might think you've got it nailed, you've got it all sussed. But I guarantee you'll turn up on the day and there'll be something that throws that all off.
Yeah.
There'll be something, because we just can't account for everything.
No.
We can't.
No, you can't. So let's go through a few examples. And we're going to start with the losers because obviously they're the ones that, you know, if we get those out of the way first. And they're not. We've one of them, for instance. We'll talk about this one first. We mentioned it a couple of episodes ago, because this was a particularly bad experience, something that we'd never had before. But we had a couple. Well, it was mainly it was the bride who was unhappy, and so if we go back to her booking, she booked well over a year before the wedding. I think it was. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember. I'm not going to say that there weren't some tiny little things that I was a bit, maybe she's not the ideal client, but I didn't think she wasn't going to be a decent client.
Yeah.
Obviously it's hard because if you're doing things over Zoom calls rather than in person, that's sometimes a bit difficult. But I remember doing the Zoom call with her and her mum, and they both seemed really lovely, and they were saying all the right things that would fit with what we do and everything. Now,
no obvious red flags.
No,
at the beginning.
Maybe if you've got something in your head about like the people that you gel with the most, maybe this wasn't her. Maybe like me and her wouldn't have a lot to talk about if we were sat down having a conversation over a meal or something. Thankfully not for Lindsay anyway. Like that'd be weird, wouldn't it? If we were sitting down having meals with other women. But that's the thing. She didn't. It wasn't any issues, and the venue. It was a nice wedding in Cheshire, and actually, everything looked like it would be a great job to do, and there was nothing really leading up to it that suggested anything else. Mm-hmm. And it's only when obviously it was a few days before that things started to be like ooh, and then it was on the day. And then obviously afterwards, even though the day didn't really go the way that we would have wanted it to, in terms of, if you want to listen back to that episode, I think it's 58 or 59.
Ago, yeah.
It didn't go on the day, but when you looked at it, I wasn't unhappy with the job that we'd done. I wasn't super worried. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't exactly super comfortable, because I knew it was a challenging day, and I knew that it had been difficult to get all the photos that I thought we would normally get at a wedding, as in portraits and things like that. So I was a little bit worried, but wasn't overly concerned, because when I looked at the final gallery, when I looked at the final films, I thought, no, actually that represents that day, which is what all we ever try to do. That's what we advertise. And it had gone all right. I thought it had gone as good as it could from our perspective, as in our performance on that day.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like it was questionable. I thought we'd done a good job. Mm-hmm. So it's only afterwards that then when she starts raising all these things, you're like, whoa, what the hell is this? And you cannot always predict that, can you?
No.
You will have had inquiries, or you have spoken to somebody where you've had that experience where you're like, instantly, no, I shouldn't do this job. And actually, it's just reminded me of one recently.
It's just coming to
Lindsay's
my mind.
nodding, because before we started this conversation, we were like, are there any other examples we could put down? And we couldn't think of any, but we'll tell you about this one. So that was that one. And then we'll tell you about this one because it's just come to our minds. So a few months ago, we get an inquiry, and it's for like this June, which we're recording this now in May, in the middle of May. So this wedding would actually be taking place in about a month's time, just over a month. And they didn't inquire till February. And this was full photo and video. And they didn't have anything booked really. They were still planning the wedding at the venue, and they didn't have a photographer or videographer booked.
No. So
like videography, yes, we get a lot of last minute videography inquiries. We don't normally get photo inquiries that are just a few months away. So this inquiry went on for a while, didn't it? It went back and forth. And on the surface of it, they sounded really keen. It was the guy that was doing a lot of the organising, and he sounded really keen. And then you didn't hear from him for ages, and then sent another follow-up email because it was just sort of in the list, and I needed to kind of I was going through the administration, needed to box it off and just get it off the list. So I sent another follow-up email. I was like, we're still trying to sort out the details of the venue, and you're thinking, crikey, this wedding's like 3 months away and you haven't sorted it out with the venue. And anyway, it sounded great. These people seemed to like know what they wanted, and they seemed to be really keen on booking us, and they wanted a call. And then so we had this video call, and how long did it go on for, Linz? It's probably the longest video call we've ever done.
Yeah.
About an hour and a half.
Yeah, not far off. And they just kept showing us pictures of our own work, and
our own work from social media and from a website.
Yeah. And I like this, and
this,
I like what you've done here, I like what you've done here. And just what was striking us was that the images that they were picking were in no way similar to the style and the setting and the feel of what they were describing that they wanted. So, you know, I remember kind of a few sideways glances at the corner of our eyes at one another during the phone call, because we're thinking, that's really cool that you've looked through our stuff and there's some things that you really like. But when you're saying that you want this style in this Art Deco venue,
because it was an urban, it was a city, middle of city urban venue.
City venue. Don't really want to go outside because it's going to be too busy. There's a small balcony we could go out to. But we really like these shots. And these are shots of really open countryside venues, sunset shots, quite ethereal looking in some respects, in direct kind of opposition, if you like, or completely conflicting with what they were telling us that they wanted. And it was quite a bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah, I got the vibe that they kind of, because they were looking and they were showing us some that were portraits, and some of these portraits were the typical kind of portraits we would do, which, you know, like you say, like Lindsay's describing, in countryside, sunset, ethereal kind of light looking. But as well, because our style's very natural, we don't overly pose. So our couples usually don't like to, you know, they don't like to be told where to kind of put their hands and everything and stand in a certain way. We do it very naturally. And that's what these photos look like. And then there was like some that were pure like documentary moments. Like I remember one that's like a bride looking like the wind's just caught a veil. It's before the wedding. She's just like weird. It's one of them that you might not even include, but I love the photo because it's such a natural moment in black and white of a veil kind of like blowing and a dress blowing in the wind, and she's just looking down at her flowers, and we didn't tell her to look down at her flowers. It was completely natural and it was just captured, and they were describing like, you know, wanting to be quite directed. So obviously you're thinking, but then at the same time you've sent them a quote that you're thinking that's a decent amount of money. It's a job in a quiet period of our year, because we only had one other wedding in June, and we would be really busy. So we were like, and it's really local, like it's just up the road in Leeds, and it'd be handy to get this job. But I came off the call, an hour and a half we'd sunk into this. Bearing in mind we've been going back and forth. I've been on the phone to this guy a couple of times as well. Like I've probably had more contact with this person than I have with any other couple ever, and they've not booked us yet.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about actual ones that we've booked and we're doing their wedding and, you know, what have you. So...
And by the end of the call, it was left as, well, we still haven't finalised things with the venue yet.
But we will be doing this week, and then we'll book you.
And then we'll let you know.
It was pretty much like they were going to book us. They didn't say we're looking at somebody else or whatever.
No.
And everything they said on the call was really good. This is getting a bit long-winded then, isn't it? But I came off the call and said to Lindsay, I'm really not sure about this one because of the things we've just said. You know, it just all seems a bit confusing, and I don't think that our style is exactly what they're looking for. Well, like we can do that style, and it was talking a lot about lighting in the venue because it's all going to be inside, and we do off-camera flash and we do light video and stuff inside when we need to, but it's not really what our style's based on. And anyway... Then I chase it up a week later because I want to again just box the inquiry off, thinking it's getting closer and closer. And he asked a question about copyright, which not many people do. It's all in the contract anyway, if they want to read through that. So he's got all that information anyway. But I just said, you know, we don't restrict your use of the photos as long as it's not for commercial gain, but the copyright you won't find many photographers that will, and if they do say they're handing you over the copyright, then I would question that, because not many photographers say that. They'll say you're free to use the photos, free to print them, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not going to like hand over the copyright to my work, because that's just not how it's done usually.
Yeah.
Unless you're talking about somebody who's like paying a crazy amount and because they want to sell it to magazines or whatever, and they want all this exclusivity of it. Anyway, la la la. So, never heard a thing.
Ghosted.
Put all this effort, and so that's a loser, isn't it? And a winner at the same time, because I think it is for the best that we aren't doing that. Well, I'm assuming we're not doing that wedding. You never know. Might get back in touch and try and book us a month out, but you know, we will be busy now. But it's just an interesting one. And then third and final loser, I'll do this one quickly. We had an inquiry for a really amazing venue down south, and like I'd never heard of this venue because we're up in the north, and this was near London, and I'd not heard of this venue, but most southern photographers and videographers will have heard of this venue. I'm not going to say it, but it was like, I looked at it and I was like, holy shit, this is like a palace. You know, this is like proper. You know, we have some nice stately homes and stuff up north, but this place was like, I think it was an old royal palace. Like, it did belong to the royal family. And I'm like, oh, well, that looks like a really nice venue. They must have a great budget. And this is just for video. And this was like, the wedding's happening in August in this year. And so kind of thought, right, I'll quote the price that it's a top dollar price. I'm not discounting it or anything.
Yeah, and didn't think, oh, that's a good venue, so I'm going to inflate the price.
No, it's not. Didn't inflate the price. Just didn't think. Right, I need to kind of get this job. No. I thought, you know, they can afford to pay whatever our prices are, and also it was in August and it was super busy around that time. Like, it would have meant it was there were 3 weddings that weekend. So I was kind of like, I want to do it. It looks like a really nice wedding, but, you know, it's going to be a bit of a pain. Anyway, came back and basically said it was too much, and then didn't hear anything and sort of wrote it off. And then a couple of weeks later, she came back to me and said, I've been looking at your stuff again. I've looked at loads of videographers. I can't find anyone that I like. And, you know, I've looked through your videos again, and I really, really want you to do it. He's still available. And is there any chance you can, like, do it a bit cheaper? Because I haven't got the budget. So I'm, like, thinking, well, that's not really what I want to do because we're already busy. But I thought, okay, maybe, like, you know, throw an extra thing in for free, you know, like some extra coverage of some sort, or maybe I could knock a couple £100 off. But I was actually thinking, I've got the travel and stuff as well. I don't really want to be discounting this. Yeah. And then so I said, well, what budget did you have in mind? And she came back with £1,300. Now, what I'm going to say is, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, £1,300 is quite a lot of money. Well, it isn't in, you know, it's a lot less than what the quote was. It's like, you know, more than half of what the quote was. Less than half of what the quote was. And if they're getting married at that venue, I can only assume that venue is tens and tens and tens of thousands of pounds, and that you'll be having all sorts of stuff. So if you're not prepared to spend more than £1,300 on a wedding videographer, you know, that's a priority issue for me. Yeah. Now, people can spend the money on whatever they want, but I would imagine the photographer was getting paid a lot. Do you know what I mean? This is a southern wedding, and I imagine they had at least a 5 to 10 grand photographer, I would assume. Yeah. So, yeah, another little loser story there. Yeah, gutted to have not had the opportunity to go to that venue, but
Yeah, goodness, we can't.
You've got to draw a line.
Yeah. Know your worth and because stick to your guns. Because for all we know, that she was just trying it on, and actually could have afforded a lot more than that. But we don't know.
But also, if she can't, are you then do you think, oh well, I want to do it, I'll drop my price, I'll go do it for that amount, and then you go and it ends up being a real pain in the ass because there's a problem of some sort. Maybe it's a difficult day, maybe the client's a problem afterwards, whatever. And you then, it's at those points where you start kicking yourself, thinking I should have known better than this. Yeah. So there are sort of negative stories, but let's go on some positive ones.
Yes, other side of the coin now. So next month, we're gonna get to experience our first wedding overseas.
Can you believe that? We've done this for so long, and we've built this business to a decent level, haven't we? We've never managed to do a destination wedding, and that's partly through design and choice, but also the right ones never come along. One that really tempted us. Yeah,
true story. So we're off to Ibiza. So this one came about a couple of months ago.
Yep.
So again, bit of a shorter notice wedding, if you like, but this kind of comes in two parts, which is quite nice. And it'll be really good to kind of, when we come to putting the story together for this one, we will have done wedding ceremony and a little bit of a reception almost in the family garden.
Like a mini reception, yeah.
And then, which is on Thursday, and then the couple and lots of their friends and their family will jet set over to Ibiza for the weekend.
Yeah. There's a few different days going on.
And then a couple of different things that are happening Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We will be there for the Saturday and Sunday, so we get to do a bit of a beach party on the Saturday, and then sort of wedding reception proper on the Sunday at the venue. So it'll be a little bit of a whistle-stop tour for us. We'll be flying out just for the weekend, but is kind of.
But we had the option to go for 5 days.
Yeah, they were.
It was a case of we couldn't really be away from the kids for that long. It's going to be hard enough to be away from them for a couple of days, isn't it?
Yeah. But, just out of nowhere comes this inquiry for this kind of two-parter, if you like, with this added element. And I guess you could think of it as kind of, because we haven't done a wedding overseas before, it's on the bucket list sort of thing, but kind of one
the
that
right one
we
was on
just
the bucket
thought,
list, like Ibiza, yeah.
That we perhaps just thought we wouldn't necessarily get the opportunity to do that. And that's come out of nowhere because there hasn't been anything, there's been no intentional path to try to seek those people out.
No marketing towards that. We don't have it in our portfolio already, which once you've got one or two destination weddings in your portfolio, it tends to go from there, doesn't it? But that's not what happened because we haven't gone down that line. We've not been able to because of the young family and everything. But and we don't want to be abroad all the time, but this was a really good opportunity. But the reason it's a winner, really, not just because it's a nice job, but it's a winner because it came out of an inquiry where somebody just wanted, the way it was sort of dressed up it was from somebody else's Instagram post. So like another couple we've done's Instagram post that someone just happens to have seen and they don't really know that person. And then they've basically sent this kind of like tenuous inquiry, like saying, will you come and film a ceremony in our back garden? Now, obviously they're going to have a decent back garden because not many people have got room to have a wedding ceremony in the back garden. But, they've basically said, can you come film a wedding ceremony in the back garden? And then they've said, she's kind of described it a little bit. And that's partly because of our contact form. It's engaging to try and ask a bit about the wedding rather than just, what simple questions. So she's basically said, that's happening, and then we're all flying to Ibiza. So off the back of that, I said, yeah, sure, I sent her a reply saying, sure, I can do that. Can come film it in your back garden, but are you sure that you don't want the rest of it capturing, like the reception and everything capturing in Ibiza? And like from there, that's it. Boom, it's happening. So, you know, if you don't don't look at things in a more open-minded way, I could have just replied and charged, you know, sort of a nominal fee to go and do a few hours work, which is not far away from us. You know, it's half an hour's drive from us, and then that's that. But instead, we've looked at the opportunity and tried to make it happen. And they're a really great couple as well. It's like I'm not going to count chickens before they've hatched, but I just think we'll get on really well with this couple, and I also think that it'll be really fun. And it'll be perfectly in line with our brand. Will this experience? Although the whole point of this podcast is that you shouldn't have those expectations. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see. The plane will be delayed or something like that.
Don't say that, Linz. That's the thing that's stressing me out.
To book a rental car.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Yeah. Number 2.
Another one. So last summer, we got another like last minute late booking. It's probably a couple of months before the wedding, and it's down south. And basically, the long and short of it is, you could have thought, well, it's down south. We've got to drive down there, and we've not done this venue before. And the couple, it came out of nowhere. It was an inquiry where it was like, I think he just rung me. I don't think they even sent an email. I think it was just a phone call that I answered randomly.
Instagram message first off.
And then just ended up on this phone call and didn't really have any information, and it was just a lot of questions on the phone call. But then anyway, it ended up happening. And then they ended up booking like our highest, like the most amount we'd ever charged just for video, which, it was 2 months out, and we were like, well, this is great, But also, then you're sort of thinking, but this could be difficult, couldn't it? They're paying the most that we've ever charged for just video. Maybe they'll be like high maintenance couple, etc., etc. Absolutely amazing. Like coolest couple ever to work with. They were so just perfectly in line with our brand and everything. And we had the best day, and they were over the moon with what we did for them. And it just shows, we got the most amount of money off the booking that we'd ever charged for video, and they were definitely like one of the best clients we've ever had.
And that's why I think it's sorry, just to interrupt. It's not going to work every time, because we've shared stories of when our branding, our messaging, and what we're kind of conveying to people, it's clearly not coming across in the right way. And then there are times where they completely get it, and you may have some things in common with these people, or there's certainly some...
And there was a real story there as well.
Yeah, and you can just, they can completely relate to you and empathise with you, and vice versa, and it's just, there is a bit of a connection that's there, and that just makes things so much easier, because there's a trust there then. There's a trust there on both sides. And so in the moments, I remember this moment where Shah was getting ready upstairs in the little cottage. And just as it does, brides often think they've got lots and lots of time, and then that last half an hour, 45 minutes, it all just comes at you. And the venue were really quite strict and regimented in sort of the timings and things. And so they came to her twat. She's opened a gift from Luke, which really
trying to anonymise.
She'd opened a gift and a card, and just because of an experience that they'd been through, you could see how meaningful it was, and it really just took a breath away. And the coordinators sort of back upstairs in this cottage, as you go, come on, registrar's going to be waiting. And you could just see that she was trying not to cry, because the makeup artist had just finished, But she sort of grabbed my arm like that, and she's just saying, just, I just need a minute, sort of thing. And then I just went and talked to the coordinator for a minute, and she went outside and waited. She obviously wasn't happy, but for me, that don't matter, because it's not your wedding day. You've got a timeline to stick to. Fair enough, but she's asking for a minute here, because whatever she's just opened and read, it's completely blown her socks off, and she just needs a minute to compose herself. But because I was there capturing that anyway, that trust for her, I guess, to kind of to grip hold of me like that. Not one of her bridesmaids, not a mum who was there, but just to somebody, I guess, who could see that, or could go and deal with a coordinator who wasn't sort of emotionally attached, if you like, and fussing about their own dress and their own appearance and things like that, but could just kind of see through, you're really stressing her out here and you're kind of killing this moment. Please just give her a bit of space just for a minute. And I think that those little things, those small little things, when you can build that with a couple and create that, I think that's really special, because I'm not going to completely contradict what was said at the beginning. You can never 100% foresee how it's going to go, but those little things throughout the day that as those little things occur, you do get a good feeling, and you kind of think, yeah, this is how it should be going.
Yeah, that was like, the template of what we want a wedding to be like. For them, but also for the experience that you end up. Right, I know you've got to get ready to go in a second, so we'll try and do this a little bit quicker. So the third one, it's a total winner, but it had some potential like downsides to it, didn't it? And that is basically, pre-pandemic, we randomly get contacted to do it was someone from New York, and we didn't know anything about them at that point. Anyway, bit of research, Lindsay finds out it's a celebrity shoe designer based in New York. It was a little bit like, wasn't it? Now, this is just someone who's done a search on Google and randomly found a video of ours. I'm doing the short version here. So, basically booked a call with us, has booked us to do their wedding film. It's happening at this really nice venue in Yorkshire. We've got it because we've done a wedding there before, which again was a chance thing that we won't talk about in this because it'll take too long, but that was a chance thing that we got that job, because it's quite expensive to have these weddings at this venue. And then we've booked this one, and then obviously the pandemic happens and we thought it wasn't happening. We were like super excited about it. Then they end up getting married in New York, because somewhere in America, because during the pandemic they just wanted to get married. But then they decided to have, even though we thought it was cancelled, it's all done. They contacted us out of the blue and said, we're going to come over and we're going to have the kind of proper wedding celebration in the same place. And so can we book you? Then they were like, the photographer was booked, who was actually friends with us, so we're not going to go there, but they couldn't do it, which was a real shame because they already had a booking on that date. So we ended up then taking over the photography as well. It was super stressful because we had already had a wedding booked on that day, so we had to split up and basically build two teams to be able to do 2 photo and video jobs, which was really, really stressful, and I wouldn't want to have to do it again, especially with something so high profile. No. But basically on the build up to the wedding, we had to sign some stuff because it was going in Brides magazine, but then there was talk of it going in American Vogue, and it was just, there's definitely going to be some kind of attention with this. We thought there was probably going to be like celebrities and stuff at the wedding. There probably was, but just nobody I recognised. And yeah, we ended up doing the job. They like paid, it's probably one of the highest amounts of money we've ever got for doing a wedding. We were doing photo and video. They ended up like as well booking us for the day before, didn't they? To do like Americans do like rehearsal stuff, don't they?
Yeah.
So it was like I mean, they've been having a week-long celebration pretty much, but they were having like a nice meal the night before, so that we did that as well. And it was great. And all the stress and all the pressure and all the kind of like, oh my goodness, you know, this is like a big deal. It wasn't like that at all. And I had it was actually a really nice event and I had a really good time.
Yeah.
But the kind of, so it was amazing, and then it went in the magazine and everything. It's a really good backlink, or the blog. It's a really good backlink. But you know, two things really. One, did anything actually come out of that? No, because these are all from America, and we didn't get any inquiries from it or anything like that. It didn't bring us any extra business.
Yeah.
And really, the kind of exposure, we probably never understood or saw any of it because it was all going to be happening in America, because this person is sort of well known in America, not well known here. And then so didn't really get that, and then we ended up as well like kind of getting hoodwinked into doing all these photos for like her like clothing and bags and shoes and stuff. So like, which was almost like they've got a free commercial shoe out of us, which you could argue is not like cool or not something we wouldn't like promote, you know, just giving away your work like that. But at the same time, I suppose you don't really get that many opportunities, and we can say that we've done like quite a high profile fashion thing now. Even if we never actually see any of the photos because they're all used in America. But yeah. So jobs can be like, you can be expecting that and it's a big win, but then there are like parts to it that are like, we will get more inquiries from, you know, the jobs we've done with couples in this country that weren't as big a deal in terms of like, you know, a flex, if you like. You know, they didn't come with like as high a reputation, but they bring you loads of jobs. Yeah. Because all the people at that wedding were getting married, and then they all want to book someone. But yeah, you get the winners and the losers, and that's kind of what we've experienced over the last 12 months. Yeah. Yeah. You never know what a wedding's going to be actually like, and you don't know what you're going to end up producing. No. Could think it's going to be amazing and it's not, or it could be, you know, you could think it's not going to be that amazing and it ends up being the best wedding ever. And it's the nature of weddings and live events and the fact that these are real people. And you don't know what it's going to bring afterwards. Like I said, we've had weddings that weren't, you know, they were just a run-of-the-mill wedding, but then you've had like 10 to 20 bookings off the back of it because all that person's friend circle was getting married. You know, and a lot of those actually are the really early on ones where we weren't charging that much. Whereas you get an amazing wedding now and they're you know, you're charging them a really good amount, but they're not going to feed you loads of referrals because they're going back to America.
Damn it.
So the thing is to be open-minded, and that was the purpose of talking about this podcast. It was to kind of never have these fixed expectations of what a wedding's going to be like or what a wedding's going to bring you, because it'll probably not be quite as you expected it. And if you have an open mind, then you can't be disappointed, and also good things will probably come your way and you won't be as disappointed when they don't.
Yeah. Okay, well, we hope you've enjoyed listening to that today. And if you did, of course, you know that you can get in touch with us. We always like to hear about your experiences of, in this case, your winning or losing, perhaps.
Tell us your wins and your losers.
Yeah, losers, wins and losses.
Wins and losses. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, we'd love to hear you. So please get in touch with us on Instagram at Wedding Mavericks. Thank you also to those that have been leaving reviews for us. Please continue, if you have any feedback for us, to continue to rate and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts. So thanks again for tuning in this week, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Bye, guys.